Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's November 11th, 2022. We are in the New Testament, and we are in the book of John, and we're going to read chapter 6, verse 1 to 21 today. All right, so John in his gospel, well, one of the things he's been doing is showing us signs that Jesus was the Messiah, and he's going to give us the fourth sign of his, which is the feeding of the 5,000, and he's going to follow it up with the fifth sign, which is Jesus walking on the water. So John wants us to see Jesus as divine. He wants us to see Jesus as a human being also. So we get little details in these stories that you don't quite get in some other Gospels. And actually, when we get to the walking on the water, we actually get less details for some reason. You go, well, how can that be true? What about Peter? That's what Matthew was talking about, Peter coming out on the water. Clearly, they must be in conflict with this because John doesn't mention that happening at all. But you know what? It's all about perspective. That's what Matthew was impressed by, what was Peter's going out and doubting and sinking. You know what? John just saw Jesus walking on the water. That was enough for him to believe that Jesus was the Messiah, that Jesus was God. And I guess example of that was, if we all went to a football game and then I asked you to describe what that football game was like, well, about half of you would have thought it should have been a soccer game and you would have been complaining about that. Some of you that are really into sports would describe that game, every single play and every down and everything that happened, and some of you would barely mention that the game even happened at all because, wow, you know what, there was a food court and there were nachos and there were this and there was that. And some people would have just said, oh, you know what, there was a fat guy down there with no shirt on he was so funny. Oh, there was a game, well, yeah, someone won, I don't remember who. So different people have different perspectives on the same thing. So that's what we see when we're reading these Gospels and why they don't necessarily look like they agree with each other. But you know what, maybe John was in a place where he didn't really see that Peter did that. Maybe he heard about it later, but he's not going to include it here because he didn't see it firsthand. I don't know. What I do know is the important part was that Jesus walked on the water. And that's in all three of the stories that we see. So that's how you kind of harmonize the Gospels as you're looking at them. So let's go ahead and we're going to read this John chapter 6, verse 1 through 21. After this, Jesus crossed the Sea of Galilee, or Tiberias. A huge crowd was following him because they saw the signs that he was performing by healing the sick. Jesus went up a mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Passover, a Jewish festival, was near, so when Jesus looked up and noticed a huge crowd coming toward him, he asked Philip, "Where will we buy bread so that these people can eat?" He asked this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread wouldn't be enough for each of them to have a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are they with so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, so they sat down. The men numbered about 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, and after giving thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also with the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were full, he told his disciples, "Collect the leftovers so that nothing is wasted." So they collected them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces from the 5 barley loaves that were left over by those who had eaten. When the people saw the sign he had done, they said, "This truly is the prophet who is to come into the world." Therefore, when Jesus realized that they were about to come and take him by force and make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. Darkness had already set in, but Jesus had not yet come to them. A high wind arose, and the sea began to churn. After they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea. He was coming near the boat, and they were afraid, but he said to them, "It is I, don't be afraid." Then they were willing to take him on board, and at once the boat was at the shore where they were heading. May God bless the reading of his word. May God bless you. Bye.